So, so let's talk about this Heat versus Spurs game. As you guys know, the Heat and the Spurs played each other on Friday. I did not get to it. I made a video and I said why I wasn't going to get to it in the second video. But now that I get to see this game, the Heat were absolutely dominated by the Spurs. The Spurs, of course, I had to see highlights. I didn't get to watch the game live. But what I saw from the highlights more than anything was the fact that Victor Wembanyama is insane. Now, first, I just want to say this is preseason. This is not, regular season. So there are worse players. All the best centers are not on the court. Like Thomas Bryant was the center for this game. And even if he starts in the regular season, we still can expect him to still be, the real center who would be guarding Victor, because that would be Bam, of course, right? And the Heat were out there with a bunch of real, it was not scrubs, but it was, the Heat role players, which they're good. They work really hard, but it's the Heat role players, that they need the stars around them. And even though they play well, the Spurs obviously have everyone who they have out there. But the real star of this game was Victor. It felt like he couldn't be stopped out there, and he couldn't, right? Because even if he had already had a good game in a preview, like against OKC, in this game we really saw him do what we expected him to do as a player. You see those step back jump shots that he was hitting from the mid range, blocking shots left and right. Saw him dribble the ball, make passes. He drove in, and there was one where he kicked it out for three, and it went in. And in my opinion, that was like a great highlight where it just showed how powerful and how much gravity Victor has, to the point where leaving a wide open shooter is a possibility. And finally, we saw that the Heat, obviously they were not playing their best, but they were just like getting overpowered by his dominance down low. The Spurs, I also have to say that they did play well, but this was a real bloodbath, especially during that first quarter where they were just trading buckets. But when we really see a team like the Spurs and we see what they've done with themselves, I think that they've probably had the perfect rebuild. When we've seen players before come into the league as generational superstars, we saw like a guy like Victor, and he in this game looked like an animal. He looked phenomenal. He didn't look tired. He looked like he would dominate. He wasn't taking up too much of the offense, but he was being extremely effective, meanwhile protecting himself, trying to get steals, getting blocks, passing, and basically initiating the Spurs when they needed anything. I like the way that the Spurs system is using him. They're using him, as a lure for 3-point shooters, and if he can get an easy bucket, then they pass him the ball. If he can't, then just kick it out. And when they have enough shooters, they use him in the top of the key because they know he can shoot, right? And he was making jump shots all game, making them pay, as he can just shoot over defenders. And with Victor, we really see that his skill comes from his, difference. He's not a. I do want to preface this by saying this is a preseason game, but Victor's skill comes from how different he is. He's a player who's not like any other player. He isn't, very fast, but he isn't slow. It's not like he's Curry, but he could definitely knock the jump shot down, right? And he's a paint beast, right? Who, even though he's not that strong, he's strong enough to be able to take a few hits. But he's all of this, meanwhile being 7'4" and having a great IQ. The Spurs, we've seen them be one of the best teams in the past 20 years, and we've seen them under Coach Pop now be able to turn the Spurs and especially San Antonio into a city of winners. And I think Victor's going to really complement this system. It's obvious that they're giving him the green light, which is something that Popovich doesn't regularly do. You know, Popovich normally makes players work for that position, but as we can see, he trusts that Victor will be the guy. For the Heat, just to talk a little bit about them, they were pretty good. You know, I'm not going to spend too much time on them, you know, but the Heat were great in terms of that. Like, they played a really good basketball for just a team of like bench players. I do want to say that they're probably saving themselves for the regular season. The Heat care about only things that are tangible. They care about playoff wins, they care about regular season wins, and they care about wins that, you know, actually matter. It's obvious that they're not going to run all their stars out there. And even though Victor was you know, playing some of his best basketball, it is true that the Heat were also not running their best centers. Neither were they playing their best players. You know, when we look at the stats, I want to say shout out to Jamal Cain. He had a damn near perfect game with 24 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, shooting 6 of 8 from 3 and 9 for 14 from the field. Had an incredible game. Drew Smith, which had 13 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, on 50% from the field. You know, also a great game. The only problem with him is he had 5 turnovers, so that's tough. And Duncan Robinson, obviously the only actual starter who played in this game. He had 14 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, and he shot under in the efficiency count. For the Spurs, we already see what their team is going to look like. It's Sohan, paint beast, rebounder, assist man. He's gonna be like the Dennis Rodman of the team, I'm sorry for the comparison. I know that people don't really like that comparison, but he's gonna be kind of that Dennis Rodman-esque, just hustle. You're not gonna expect a lot of him from on offense, even though he scored 10 points. He had 3 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 offensive rebounds, and he had a +6 plus minus. You know, with Chetty Osman, he was pretty good. He shot well from the field, and he had 5 assists and 2 steals. He had played a pretty good game. With Bassey, you know, Charles Bassey, he had also a pretty cool game with 6.6 rebounds on extremely efficient numbers and 4 blocks. But really, the star of the show was Victor Wembanyama. Even though he did hit 1 of 5 from 3, which is terrible, I don't think, you know, he missed 1 field goal. 1. I just want that to sink in. He missed 1 field goal, and that's crazy. He hit both of his free throws. He had 23 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds with 3 blocks, and he just overall played a great round of basketball. You know, we don't have to overcompensate and say, oh my God, this is the greatest game. No, it's a pretty, like, this is probably what he's going to average, you know. But in my opinion, it is a testament to his game, the fact that he did all of this and had such an effective game with the limited minutes that he does have. In a regular game with Victor's age, and especially how good he is, he probably will be playing around 35 minutes a game, 38 maybe. You know, when he played 23 minutes this game and he got those stats and he played a phenomenal game. If you looked at him on the board, you could see his shots were going down, especially from the mid-range, as he was just red hot. And with Victor, I think that Victor is a problem for the league. How are you going to stop this guy? He's 7'4", right? He can block everything in the paint. He can hit threes, even if it's not effectively. He's still a threat from out there if you leave him 100% open. And he has a great mid-range game, and obviously it's going to be very hard for him to miss at the rim or for you not to foul. The only way that I could see someone beating Victor is just by pure size, like a Jokic or an Embiid. But apart from there, he still has their number because he can bring them out to the three-point line because he can actually shoot. I feel like Victor is a phenomenal player, and he's really been, you know, so spectacular when it comes to his way of managing himself. He's not trying to do too much. He's not trying to prove that he's on superstar, and he's not trying to show everybody anything. He is literally just playing the best basketball that you can as a rookie. I think Victor's phenomenal. Tell me what you think about him, and tell me what you think about this game.